Morning, Humphrey. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm good. I'm just reading some of this stuff today about Google's policy on pushing away from third-party tracking, which is obviously something we've been expecting, but now it's good to see it in writing. So yeah, today we're going to talk about some of the thinking with what we've been doing over the last, I guess it's 2 or maybe even 3 years that we've been working together, and the reasons why, and where we see things going, because we talk all the time about all kinds of things which are very exciting, and they never makes out into the real world. So it's quite nice to be able to share this on this fireside chat, if that's okay. Obviously, we're in an interesting position. Webgains has done well. The last 12 months was pretty positive. COVID was a tough year for our staff, but the sort of consumer demand lifts have really helped us. So we had a good year. But obviously we're still not out the woods yet, and there's a long way to go before we are back to any kind of normality. And then we have this post-COVID kind of environment. We're just trying to work out how that goes. So we've got post-COVID, and we've got first-party only privacy world, and therefore it's not the same world that we left that we go back into. So very interesting that we find ourselves in these days. But anyway, moving on from that. The reason you and I work together, we've known each other a while. We were put together by a VC back in the day, and then on Twitter I saw you ping up because you had your PhD in something kind of around predictive analytics, and I thought, oh, that looks very interesting. Humphrey, let's have a chat. Turns out that you were absolutely in the sweet spot of what we needed at the time, and since then we've done a lot of very interesting things together. I think we rolled out 3 products. We've got another couple coming. But just to start off. How did you get into this world? Where was it what was it that drove you into this kind of crazy, spooky world of, it's almost like reality and fantasy with this artificial intelligence, machine learning? What was your path? How did you get into it? I guess you weren't born thinking about it.
No. The very earliest days was, I took as part of my computer science undergraduate, I took a module in machine learning. As part of final year, and in that module it was elective, and there was all kinds of different machine learning approaches you could take, and the one which was at that time was very out of fashion, and everybody was just beating it down, saying it would never work, was neural networks. But I don't know why, but something about neural networks, probably because of how I really like the biological plausibility of them, so that we're trying to emulate in hardware and software how we think our own brains work, and I think like long term, that's probably got to be at least some part of the way to go, as opposed to other machine learning approaches that you could take, because it's been proven to work. Now there's a huge debate over exactly how biologically plausible they need to be, and it's very contentious. But that's what got me started into it. So I built a robotic arm that learned by seeing. So it learned how to stack cups like a toddler, and it started showing emergent behavior like toddlers do. So where they pre-stack different sections of cups and then put them together at the end, and that was really cool. So the kind of developmental psychology. So then I kind of more mainstream. I worked in financial services, energy trading for a while. And then I got really interested in a type of data set which is like kind of sequence to sequence or sequence to prediction. So, a user or a company or some system generates a sequence of actions, and you're most interested in what's going to happen next. So, and can I predict what's going to happen next, and to what degree of accuracy? And as you can imagine, that's highly valuable in a number of domains, right? So like that can be mean time before failure for components. If you're in manufacturing or industry, it can be fraud detection for credit card. E-commerce, it's about users and merchants and publishers. So, what do I think is going to happen? I'm looking at this big network. It's a dynamic system, so it's incredibly hard to analyze it, to do like all the differentials and integrations we need to do in real time. So we have to do shortcuts to make it mathematically tractable. But once I do that, what kind of learnings and behaviors can we inference from the network to help grow, and then if we have a set of business goals or challenges, let's say from you or from Webgains, how can we feed that into the data and make recommendations on what needs to happen next? So connecting merchants with publishers, ranking publishers and ranking merchants, understanding users and cohorts of users. And e-commerce is just full of data sets like that. Like machine learning needs data, and e-commerce generates data at an almost unheard of rate. So you and I both know, because we've had the internal conversations, the amount of data Webgains gathers in just a week of trading is enough to train a good number of highly advanced machine learning models.
Yeah, I remember when we first spoke. In fact, when I first looked at this, the reason we first got into this is because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine at IBM. I don't know, yeah, literally as I just went into Webgains in 2016, and they said, you don't have any idea how much data you have. You don't have any idea of the utility of that data. And we were like, okay, yeah, tell us. And then we obviously tried to embark on a project with the IBM guys, which didn't kind of work out in the end. But it was the big challenge. It was the biggest challenge we had. And not just about what can we do with it, what can we do with it inside the privacy envelope, because it was just the beginning of the conversations around data privacy. What can you do where you aren't really allowed to collect personal information, but what you can do is you can infer it from transactional data and then the products that we have in the product database, which is something that we've worked very hard on to make sure that we can kind of plot the behavior of actually SKUs rather than merchants or affiliates. It's super interesting. And it was the other thing that came into my mind when I arrived was, why wasn't there more innovation? The stuff that we were working with, whether it's us or our competitors, the platform that everyone was sitting on, was kind of 20 years old. Back from the days that you and I were both working in the very early days of CPAs, because that was the first model that came along. Nothing had really changed. It was funny. Why do you think it's been so hard? You see affiliates innovating, and you see agencies affiliating, but the actual networks themselves haven't done so. Have you got a view on that?
That's quite a hard question, first of all. So thanks for that. I think there's no one single answer that that's really everyone's going to go, aha, yes, that's the. I think it's a number of things. It feels to me like e-commerce in general, and especially affiliate marketing, because of how affiliate marketing works, came out of a golden age, right? A golden age where you could do anything. So you set your third-party cookies, you track everybody, you can do real-time marketing. Privacy is not a concern. We'll track who we like, when we want, and all of that just works. And then you build systems on the back of that, which are, yeah, of course, if I know everything about a user, I can serve any advert I want. Now, much to the annoyance of the end user, right, who's now getting, swamped with adverts for things they looked at, and of course there was never a feedback loop to say, hey, I've purchased this, so you keep getting those ads.
Yeah, exactly. It's the interruption, but it's the endless interruption. It's like booking.com. You buy a hotel, you pay for the hotel, and you're still getting pitched for hotels, and it's just so annoying. Yeah, so it's exactly. An annoying interruption as opposed to a harmonic interruption.
Yeah, and they're paying needlessly for those ads as well, right? So but the system was just, I don't know, everybody's making money, therefore it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now I think there's been some big disruptors coming in. So COVID is an accelerator rather than a disruptor. So that's like, we've all seen the stats. Has that pulled forward our industry by 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, depends who you talk to?
Well, I guess in some markets it is. Obviously in retail, yes. Travel, no. Travel's been a complete killer. But yeah, it's definitely had some headwinds and some tailwinds.
Yeah. So I think another blocker for innovation would be, in the recent past. So if we go back, let's say 5 years, and you've probably got a closer view on this than me, because I know you've been living and breathing it. But GDPR and the advent of ITP in the Safari world, which has a big impact in the mobile world, because it's not so bad on the desktop, but it's they're highly prevalent on mobile. So the combination of iOS and Safari, and what ITP does, and like even deleting first-party cookies in many cases. So now the networks need to look at that and say, well, okay, how does my business model now work when the core data that I was relying on to power my business model is now changing at a rate that it has never changed before? These are fundamental things that are tectonic plates shifting under our feet. Like the browsers are getting in our way. So we know third-party cookies are going to go. What will they be replaced with? Google says nothing, but wait and see, because I think something will come. we've shared in the past, there are browser initiatives out there that would, in a privacy protecting manner, allow you to see what kind of broad level user interests are. So like, sports, football, sports rugby, I'm interested in fashion, I'm interested in electronics. And that would be something that, like we would use, we've actually got a proof of concept or prototype already to use that internally to power kind of, real-time distribution of merchant products and, into good publishers. So I think there's,
obviously inside the PII restrictions, yeah,
exactly. So there's the innovation has been innovation comes sometimes in response to a threat, right? So a competitor threat or people changing things beneath you. So I think actually we're going to see a lot more innovation in the next few years because all of affiliate marketing is going to live in a space which now has very high entropy. There's a lot of change coming.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we've seen kind of stripped down networks, which are the platforms. We've seen a couple of new entrants in the last few years that have done very well because they are kind of, they're the least slow moving entity. Therefore, they become very attractive, and in their place, they're very valuable. But of course, if you want managed services like a network can provide, then that's a different thing. And we from very early on, we had this thing saying more brains, less hands. Less admin, much more thinking. And what we're trying to do is use our data to inform ourselves and provide the insight that we need, based on 15 years of a platform existence plus whatever it is, 30 million products plus 250,000 affiliates, and then however many merchants we're working with. And in the middle there are the answers, and that's really what we've been trying to synthesize. Because if you are using your own technology with your own program, there is no cross-fertilization available at all. You are on your own, and of course you can get coached and everything else by a client services team. But at the end of the day, we need to be providing proper insight. And when we were first looking at the affiliate discovery mechanisms whereby you don't have to filter through 250,000 affiliates, we just use these kind of matching mechanics that machine learning is provided to give you the top 10, that we know that's the simplest way of, if you connect to these guys, they are going to drive you more money than anybody else. And that's a real sifting and filtering job. It's very important for us, but it's really hard, isn't it? I mean, we've had to go through loads of stuff to get that working, all the way back to almost like square one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you look like the machine learning models that we wanted to use for that we established them reasonably quickly up front. And we did change, so like, we bench tested 4 or 5 in parallel, and we ended up going with the top 2. But for all of those models, what it kept coming back to was how good is the merchant at telling us what they've got? So how good is their product feed, and how good is the publisher at telling us what they do? And so like when we were able to go and use first order methods to be able to, so crawl publisher, we're looking for what language are they operating in? Are they multi-language? And what domains do we believe they're in? How fresh is their content? And what's their tone of voice? So like what cohort of users do we believe they're trying to attract? So, and then it's it is your straightforward graph matching, red on blue. And we say, okay, with what merchants, like the example we always use is like Harry Potter or Star Wars Lego or Aquaman, where can I place those products? And if you get good data on both sides, you come up with excellent answers. Remember I was showing, one we were using for a while was the merchant who does the high-end dog food. And you would think to start with, there's not much in, that's highly specialized, but Webgains actually has some excellent publishers, like for such a niche product, right? So like premium dog food for Fido. And like, we've got thousands of merchants, and if we get good data on both sides, we can, invariably we can come up with like a really good. The trick here is we want to delight the user. There wants to be some serendipity in the tool where the user goes, oh, that's great. There are obvious candidates in every sub-network of Webgains, Webgains UK, Germany, France, and so on. But there are some less obvious ones that can generate, as you say, like really, really qualified traffic that's going to convert really well and bump up those margins.
Yeah. I mean, the philosophy that we're employing is it's many to many. We want to widen out the advertiser proposition through products, and then we want to match them with as wide as possible a network of affiliates, because just doing one brand, one affiliate, which many programs I see on Webgains, but it's a very kind of easy thing to do, and all you're using network for is payments and validations. But we need to add more value than that. So this thing that we've talked about, we have this thing called revenue active links, don't we, where you're taking a link from one side of the marketplace to the other, and the idea is to maximize as many of those revenue active links as we possibly can have, because it puts defendability into the network, and it also adds value. It's the marginal gains thing which we go on all the time. We say we give you the edge, and we allow a way that we can use the network where we have billions of these sort of nodal connections that we're now trying to grow. And I think you and I, we've got this kind of internal metric where we say, look, we've got to get these rails as high as we possibly can, because then it's very difficult to follow down that path. The average affiliate numbers per merchant on Webgains is around 7,000, and it's the sort of 6,700 which actually do make a difference, rather than the 30 at the top, which kind of are the big ones, and they're very valuable and everything else, but they're easy to manage really on a one-to-many basis. But it's the many-to-many thing that we're trying to do, and it's really hard.
It is, and like that, the RAL metric is, single number metrics are all like they're never perfect, but in a single number, that RAL encapsulates a lot of things. Like it encapsulates network diversity and health, and so what a RAL would say is, if all of a sudden the network suffered, a catastrophic breach. So this theory came from DARPA. But this was new.
Yeah, it's happened. I mean, we've one industry sector has just been not dead for the last 12 months, and
that's right,
unless you've got that balance and that diversity, and I call it fertility, you call it kind of diversity and network health. I call it fertility, because you just want to be growing revenue through the network. Yeah.
Yeah. So the RAL number encapsulates a lot of different things, and it's a good metric to use. It kind of shows overall the vibrancy of the network. So
Yeah. I mean, talking about sort of going to the other end of things now, with that sort of long tail of affiliates and the influencer world, we talk about all kind of things from an AR point of view, and there are this new sort of breed of technology coming through, where it's semantic driven content authoring, artificial personas. There's all kinds of things. I mean, we talked about GPT-3 the other day, where, I mean, you know more than this, but it's effectively where you can set a few guidelines to a robot effectively, and then they can write prose in a very good way. Very difficult to decipher it from a human. I mean, where do you think that's going to go? I mean, where did that come from?
Well, ultimately, I guess GPT-3, ultimately stems back from what's called the transformer model of families. So, so a particular machine learning architecture, if you train it on enough hardware and enough raw data, eventually it starts to, generate prose, which, as you say, if you can give it the right starting set of tokens, set of words, it'll carry on completing, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs, and you read the output, and it's extremely high quality.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the cold start problem. When you're taking something from nothing, how do you get from cold start to motoring? But it seems to be that GPT-3 needs almost hardly anything to get it going, and it can then really write very high quality content.
It can. There are some edge cases where it still falls down, and actually in the paper themselves, the authors say they believe they're starting to find the limits of the system. So, like, from the story of machine learning from 2018 until now has been, okay, I've got this architecture, how big can I make it? And then, of course, so then the winners of that game tend to be people like Google, Facebook, OpenAI. So GPT-3 takes about, I believe the number is, it takes about $3 million to train on compute time. And I think OpenAI get all of their compute time from Microsoft Azure, and that's Microsoft then licensed GPT-3. So, they're obviously going to make it, they're trying to make it part of their ML platform. But, so there's a lot of disquiet in the machine learning community that says, well, you just asked me about innovation in affiliate marketing. Where's the innovation going to come in machine learning if you need $3 million to train a model?
Yeah.
So, how many grad students around Bristol or Cardiff or have access to $3 million for each model they want to train. So there's
barrier to entry.
I think the field is going to come back out of that, and there's going to be kind of a wider, an explosion of cheaper, smaller models. But overall, what it means for marketing is machine learning in the next couple of years is going to be able to generate high quality video. So, like animations on screen of a completely fake person with a completely fake voice who is dispersing auto-generated content.
Yeah, I mean, you showed me 2 days ago the thispersondoesnotexist.com, where you can just refresh the page and see people's faces that just look like a collection of LinkedIn profiles or Facebook photos. But every single one of those is completely machine generated, and nothing. There isn't that. Those people do not exist. Yeah, this person does not exist.com. It's pretty frightening, because then of course you're it's almost like the computers are auto-generating the humans. Obviously it's a digital way, but it does make you think.
It does, and like
if you put that together with the GPT-3, and you can create this. I mean, it goes to writing, but then that writing transfers into speech. Effectively, you're not very far away from almost autonomous automatons being created and saying things. And how do you discern from those people or those images on the internet, if they were starting to do Instagram feeds or whatever it might be? How does the average human tell a difference?
If they stay within a narrow domain, I think eventually it'll become virtually impossible. So because you just won't be able to catch them out. General AI is still a long way off, right? So, and like that's always been the holy grail of AI, which said, if I train a model on one set of data, can I now make it generalize on many different disparate data sets? And that is still the holy grail, and they still can't do that, right? So, in any kind of way that would approach human level performance.
Yeah. But you see on Twitter, in the US election recently, and I'm sure we'll see it, and also in the Brexit conversation on Twitter, you could just see these bots were just coming out with stuff that was kind of like, is that real? Is that a real bot? And what is it? But it's been weaponized. It's been weaponized in the way that it just causes confusion and distraction, which is obviously I guess the bad guys like.
Yeah. And so if I said to you, could we train bots that would generate Brexit content or US election content or the upcoming UK next number of years, the next UK general election? Could I train bots to generate good Conservative and good Labour memes, and then
or even anti-vaxxers, which is what's going on at the moment in Europe.
Anti-vaxxers, yeah. So, like, absolutely you can, because those data sets are well described, they're well understood, and actually they're almost very homogenous within themselves. So like you don't need too much to be able to start generating really good content. Yeah. Where it's going to get more difficult is if how do I ingest a product data set of 30 million SKUs, and that's actually on that's a small to medium size. It can get much larger than that, and understand product categories over every single domain that's sellable on the internet, from electronics to clothes to leisure travel. That's going to get harder.
Or the horizons become much more exciting. I suppose if I'm a merchant and I've got a high moving technology business and I've got tens of thousands of lines, and I'm really attracted by the idea of influencers out on the social media channels, accelerating and amplifying my messages and to get my sales going, then that becomes both a exciting but also a nightmare. The nightmare in terms of brand protection, we've got some plenty of advertisers on our network that are very, very keen to make sure that nobody's discussing their brand or products in a bad way. On the other hand, they still want to amplify them with enough reach to hit their financial objectives. So there is a balance. I mean, I'm looking at the thing this week from one of the influencers, Molly May, and she's been censured again by the Advertising Standards Authority for I think it was running a price draw that wasn't under the right guidelines or something like that. And that's the worry. You have an influencer that's hugely influential and got lots of followers, and they had 1.5 million applicants to that competition. But it was I think it was Louis Vuitton or something like that they were giving away. And that does hurt the brand when you think, well, we don't want those kind of people potentially don't want those kind of people, being aligned to what we're trying to do in our positioning. But I suppose the positive thing of an autonomous advertiser, you can set those guidelines. You can basically say, look, you can say anything from here to here, but outside that's not permitted. and it has to be ethical. You have to have anti-racial biases or whatever they are, because obviously there's a few problems with that. But other than that, it's just kind of set and forget, and off you go. And there's a lot of people out there that just follow it. Little Michaela, we've talked about this many times. The broad stable of these kind of virtual influencers. They've got millions of followers. They do drive sales. They are getting money. This stuff is here. It's awake. It's a case of, could the influencer disruptors be disrupted by the avatars? It's fantastic to see, and really interesting to think about.
Yeah. I think, like, in terms of the disruption, probably what's going to happen is they're going to get moved up the value chain. So because if we flip that on its head, right? So let's say, what are the weaknesses of these avatars? Well, so the avatars don't exist, so therefore they can't perform a physical product review of something. So if you're looking to buy the next VW Golf or the next Vauxhall Astra, whatever it is, you can auto generate all the content you want, but only a human can sit behind that steering wheel and tell you what it feels like to drive. Is it heavy?
If they're ingesting YouTube reviews, written reviews, something like a mobile phone is just endless reviews about this stuff with star ratings and everything else. So if you aggregated that and then put that as a signal into your kind of fake review or real view, where's the difference? There is a possibility for that.
Well, yeah, but but again, like speaking personally as a consumer now, like, I think when I read stuff like that, when I read content, if I'm looking, for like let's say a new bike or a new phone, whatever it is, I find myself sifting through the content, looking for a personal voice where somebody has gone hands-on with it, and I can actually see that he or she has used the product.
Yeah.
And that's we've also spoke about the Reddit effect. So like SEO and SEM has nearly done for so many sections of the web. One of the last remaining places you can go and get an unbiased review of a product is Reddit. And now they're trying to monetize that as well, right? So, but I think end users, so the people are becoming, as all this stuff hits the market, they're becoming sophisticated as well. So they will start looking for these hands-on reviews. They'll start looking for, okay, has all this stuff been, do I have a suspicion all of this content has been auto-generated? In which case, how do I know I can? Because GPT-3, as fantastic as it is, gives absolutely no guarantees as to accuracy, right? So it only has to appear plausible. It doesn't have to be plausible and be correct. And that's that, like, when you're selling, that's an important thing, right? So
Yeah. But it's getting better. It seems to me that every time I hear about a new thing, it's become more accurate and weirdly more human. What is it to be human? So it's that kind of age-old question. This is definitely third horizon stuff. This is far in the future, but it's coming closer, and it's the sort of thing that we all need to think about, because it is on the landscape. You and I talking in our sort of prime of our life, etc. And then our kids, my children, they're 18, 20. They're making their first steps into having their own money and making their own decisions, and they're very wary. They've been trained from a very early age to look out for the bad guys. But nevertheless, if I go back to that this person does not exist.com, you can't tell. You cannot tell. You look at those pictures and they are. You cannot tell that that's a digital avatar that has never existed. And I can only imagine that not even bad guys, just clever people. The way that we're all sort of humans are just obsessed with the new and the shiny and trying to be a little bit clever than the person next to them. And therefore this stuff will appear. There will be these worlds where it all exists. Look at the gaming world. People are living in a sort of semi-fantasy reality, and they find it very difficult to disengage when they come out of that. So the next generation, we're going to see, it's almost like their brains will go first in terms of this sort of digital virtual thing, and then I guess their behaviors follow. Could be a very interesting time.
It is super interesting. I think the rate of change has never been higher, and COVID has only accelerated that, because all of a sudden
everyone's inside on their machines.
Yeah, so now like at various stages during the lockdowns, we physically removed the ability for people to go and shop for products on the high street, which of course, like, probably the high street, that's what it needed, like a hole in the head, right? But but it just meant, like, online received even more attention, more investment. There's more pressure on it. So I think it started last year. It's going to continue for the next few years, and it's not going to stop for a good while yet. Like we're almost at the middle of the center of a perfect storm, right? So because ML, machine learning AI, has been coming on this trajectory for quite a while. Now privacy is coming on the right-hand side, right? So I can do all this stuff with this data, but I better not, right? So and I need to be a good citizen and live within the restrictions that's set out by whatever my home government happens to be. And now you've got users who are being pushed online. So this stuff is about as high profile as it gets, right? Because we're all living and breathing it every day.
Yeah. Very interesting. In one of the conversations we had last year at the Transform event with Kate Anquetil, she was giving us this kind of picture of what's happening in China, where the data privacy stuff isn't quite so hard, although it is coming. And you've got these high streets that become much more of it's almost like an entertainment venue, and you've got your phone and it's AR and there's lots of things going on and you can see the influencers there, and it's this completely hybrid model, which I think in Europe and US, in the Western world, there is no other choice. We have to do that. There has to be much more of a pull to the high street than there ever has been, because otherwise he would, just trailing around a crowded shopping mall on a 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, I'm an old guy. It doesn't appeal to me. Maybe it does appeal to the youngsters, but they won't put up with the way it is, because they'll just buy online. They buy everything online. Amazon has just completely homogenized that experience, and that's that. So I suppose it brings it to the last kind of question, really. Fascinating conversation. But if you were a merchant retailing products online, what are the 3 things you should be thinking about right now in order to prepare for this kind of new post-COVID, heavy privacy, no third-party world?
Well, you know what? If I was going to dumb down everything that we've talked about so far, most of what we've talked about so far, from a merchant point of view, it still comes down to distribution. And so from a merchant, you're saying, okay, so what you're telling me is distribution channels are going to change, the modalities are going to change, but you still need good data to get into those channels in the first place. So it's still I know you'll probably roll your eyes, because I beat this drum a lot, but it's about the quality of your product feed. So it doesn't matter whether you believe that product feed is going to end up in a browser, on a desktop or a mobile phone, whether it's going to be the spoken word, be converted into a YouTube video, going to multiple influencer channels, and however they want to decide to do it, you still need your core product. That means high quality images. That means good, accurate pricing, including delivery costs. That means long, not overly long, but good length product descriptions. Multi-language, if you're doing multi-language, all of the the basics still apply. So because that's your product, right? So if you think that you're going to
stock availability seems to be a big thing. If you don't have the stock availability, you end up spending a fortune on promotions that will never fulfill.
Yeah, and we see that many times, right? So in particular sectors like automotive, we've seen that, and there's a few other ones that spring to mind. And people are clicking on the link, so you're paying for the advert. You get there and it's out of stock. So
yeah, I know that's a big bugbear of affiliates, especially PPC affiliates and people like that.
Yeah. So I think your core data is as important. In many ways, like a lot of the innovation is going to happen downstream of the merchants. It's going to be done by people like Webgains, right? Who are going to say, I will connect you with the next generation of publishers. I will make sure that we're connecting you with the best publishers, and that we're giving you the qualified traffic. The core competency for the merchant has got to be say, hey guys, this is what I've got to sell, and I've got this much of it, and it costs this much.
Yeah, and we've got this much left.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what about technology for advertisers?
I would say, like at the moment, and again, it feeds into stuff you and I talk about all the time. It's hard to bet on one single thing. So one of the, a principle that I try and live by is saying, I don't mind failed experiments. Like failed experiments show that you're trying, and you're going to have some failures. Statistics vary all the time, but if you look like all the big guys A/B test things on their homepage, and they will tell you that 95% of the tests make zero difference, or actually have a negative difference. But what you build is an infrastructure where you can run many experiments, and in some of them even in parallel, if you can separate out the causation and correlation. So I think a big principle is saying, okay, look, technology is changing at a rate of knots, and we're at this perfect storm nexus that I spoke about earlier. Therefore, we need to be trying lots of different things because things are moving so quickly. You don't want to get left behind. So it's not, don't be afraid of failure, but what you want to do is reduce your failure cost. So saying, okay, look, I'm not going to bet the farm on this, but a particular technology, could be, auto text generation. It might be image to video. Could be something else. What can we do in a sandbox or a silo environment to see if it's going to work or not? Can we run a beta? Can we get a couple of merchants on board or a couple of publishers on board? Whatever side of the fence you're living on. Obviously, Webgains, we do both. And then just build something and see if it's going to work. Is it going to move the dial? If it doesn't, then actually that's a good learned lesson. If it does, then okay, we're onto something.
So the key thing is just making sure your catalog is as agile and as attractive as possible and up to date, and then partner with either a technology partner or a network to make sure that gets fired out in as efficient and quick way as possible. And then I suppose the third thing is just understand your data. Is just really understand where the key drivers are, where the really proper drivers are. And one of the things I often see is two things actually with retailers. One is affiliate just seems to be in a channel, and you've got a channel spend, and you have an affiliate marketing spend, and it's just so bizarre for me because it's a positive ROI. You're talking anything up to 20 to 1 on your spend, and you're saying, oh, actually, I've got to stop the commissions now. I'm going to try and borrow some money from another channel. And that's one of the things I find really, really weird, because effectively you're just throttling what you could be doing. And then the other one is just not really understanding that the world is a big place, and the geographical nature of everything is, of course you've got your business units that are UK or EMEA or US or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, the shoppers are everywhere, and they don't sort of align to one thing. They're moving around all the time. They're in one country, like it delivered somewhere else. I've always thought that if it was me with an e-commerce brand, the first thing I would do would be transnationalize everything, and then go for the or effectively go for the highest ROI you can, and then work backwards from there. Very interesting times. I mean, we could talk forever. We've hit our time limit, but yeah, that's very interesting. Hopefully, anyone watching this will find it interesting too. We'll continue on this path. We've got affiliate discovery we've launched. We've got the new product discovery where it's basically an online taxonomy of 26 million products with all their performances that anyone can search. We have a new commission manager coming. We've also got something called candidate search, which allows internally us to search any e-commerce site in the world and tells us whether they're worth pursuing or whether they have an affiliate program or not. And the same applies for publishers. You've done a brilliant job in the last 2 years, Humphrey. It's really transformed what we're doing, and I'm looking forward to the next few years too. Thanks very much.
Oh, likewise. Webgains is a great company to work for because, as I said, you're very open to doing all the, using the data, to build a network. So it's and like I said, the Webgains network is an opportunity, and problem wrapped up into one, tailor-made for machine learning. Absolutely tailor-made. So you can't sift through all of the possible candidates as a human, but we definitely can apply machine learning. We've got some great product data in there, so we can understand the merchant side, the publisher side as well. There's a really interesting challenges there, measuring diversity and freshness. The all in a multi-language setting. So we regularly consume 15, 16 languages. Well, we actually see over 60 or 70. We only focus on the top 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So there's some really interesting machine learning challenges inside Webgains as well. And yeah, we've launched some nice things and some exciting stuff in the pipeline.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks very much, Humphrey. Brilliant.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks then. Bye.
Bye.